Knowledge in a Nutshell by Charles Reichblum. Copyright 1994 by Charles Reichblum. This full-length reading was published by arrangement with Knowledge in a Nutshell, Incorporated, and was produced in 2000 by Books on Tape, Incorporated, which holds the copyright thereto. This book has 248 pages and is read by Dan Cashman. Should you have any questions about this recording, please call the customer service number shown on the package for information or assistance. Dedication to Audrey, Bob, Bill, Diane, and Amelie for their support and interest in all these facts and stories. To Rachel, Justin, Noah, and Clarissa for their inspiration. To Barbara and Angela for all that typing. Preface. Some kids collected baseball cards. Others collected stamps. But when I was a helper at a radio station newsroom at age 14, with daily access to the news, wire, and many newspapers, I started collecting facts and stories that surprised me, or taught me something interesting, or were fun to know. One day there was a story on the 4th of July, and deep down in the text there was a note that 3 of the first 5 U.S. presidents had, by coincidence, all died on July 4th. I clipped that and saved it. Over the years, I kept adding interesting facts to my collection every time I heard one, or read one, or dug one out in my research. But how many were really true? When I began my own news service, Century Features, in 1959, I started checking and verifying all those facts I had. I used 3 criteria for the ones I wanted to keep. Were they accurate? Were they informative? And were they interesting? This book is the result of a now 50-year collection of these facts and stories. Chapter 1. U.S. Presidents. The amazing coincidence of presidential deaths on Independence Day. 3 of the first 5 U.S. presidents all died on July 4th. The second president, John Adams, died in Quincy, Massachusetts, on July 4th, 1826. The third president, Thomas Jefferson, died in Charlottesville, Virginia, on the same day and the same year as Adams, July 4th, 1826. And the fifth president, James Monroe, died in New York City on July 4th, 1831. He was the father and the son of U.S. President. John Harrison of North Bend, Ohio, was unique in American history. He was both the father and the son of a U.S. President. His father was William Henry Harrison, who was elected President of the United States in 1840. His son was Benjamin Harrison, who became President of the United States in 1888. Although John Harrison never became president like his father and his son, he did become a U.S. Congressman from Ohio from 1852 to 1857. Did the U.S. always have a president? Well, the United States once went 13 years without a president. The U.S. was formed in 1776, but George Washington did not take office as first president until 1789. And yet, during those 13 years, the U.S. got off the ground, won a war, and functioned as a successful nation. U.S. President elected by 1 vote. The presidential election of 1876 between Rutherford Hayes and Samuel Tilden gave neither man the required electoral votes. So the election was thrown into Congress, where a 15-man commission was chosen to vote on the winner. Hayes won 8-7, and thereby became U.S. President by the margin of 1 vote. Tell the president he's not the president. One of the most unusual election nights in American history occurred November 7, 1916, when many people went to bed thinking Charles Evans Hughes was elected U.S. President over Woodrow Wilson. Hughes himself went to bed at 1 a.m., convinced he had won. However, late returns changed the outcome and gave the election to Wilson. A reporter called Hughes's room to get his reaction. A Hughes aide who answered the phone said, "The president is asleep." The reporter said, "When the president wakes up, tell him he's not the president." Roosevelt was the youngest president. The youngest person ever to be president of the United States was not John Kennedy, as many believe. The youngest president was Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt was 42 when he became president in 1901. Kennedy was the second youngest president. He was 43 when he was inaugurated in 1961. Bill Clinton ranks as the third youngest president, inaugurated at age 46. First woman nominated for U.S. President. It wasn't in any recent year that the first woman was nominated to run for President of the United States. It happened in 1872. Victoria Claflin Woodhull of New York was nominated by the Equal Rights Party. Her running mate was the first black ever nominated for U.S. Vice President, Frederick Douglass. The election was won by Ulysses Grant. The first woman nominated for president by a major party was Senator Margaret Chase Smith of Maine. Smith's name was placed in nomination at the Republican Convention in 1964, and she received 27 votes on the first ballot, which was won by Barry Goldwater. President Bill Clinton's name wasn't Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton's name originally was Bill Blythe. His father and mother were William and Virginia Blythe. His father died, and his mother later married Roger Clinton. At age 16, the future president changed his name from Bill Blythe to Bill Clinton. Father of country, no father. Ironically, the man called the father of the country, George Washington, was never a father himself. Washington and his wife, Martha, had no children of their own. 5 other U.S. presidents also had no children: James Madison, Andrew Jackson, James Polk, James Buchanan, and Warren Harding. At the other end of the scale, the president who had the greatest number of children was John Tyler. Tyler had 15 children. Kennedy-Lincoln similarities topped off as Kennedy is shot in Lincoln. There were many startling similarities in the assassinations of President Kennedy and Lincoln. Both were shot on a Friday. The names Lincoln and Kennedy each have 7 letters. The assassins' names, John Wilkes Booth and Lee Harvey Oswald, each have 15 letters. Booth was born in 1839, Oswald in 1939. Lincoln was elected in 1860, Kennedy in 1960. Lincoln and Kennedy were both succeeded by men named Johnson: Andrew Johnson, who was born in 1808, and Lyndon Johnson, who was born in 1908. Lincoln's secretary was named Kennedy, and Kennedy's secretary was named Lincoln. To top it off, the make of the car in which Kennedy was riding when he was shot was a Lincoln. Last non-Democrat, non-Republican to be president. Who was the last president who was neither a Democrat nor a Republican? He was the 13th president, Millard Fillmore, who served from 1850 to 1853. Fillmore was a member of the Whig Party. Since then, the closest any non-Democrat or non-Republican has come to the presidency was Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt won on the
Sample complete. Ready to continue?